Happy New Year. Welcome into When the Game Ends. Ben Holden, Mike Carmen, episode 13. We're going to call this an episode, Carmi. You and I are going to kind of chat a little bit about what we've done, what we're planning on doing, and just kind of talk through some of the highlights from the pod so far. Happy New Year, man. How are things in Minneapolis?
Things are good. Things are Happy New Year. Things are cold.
Thank you.
We're in our first real cold snap, I feel like, of the winter. It's been single digit mornings and negative wind chill mornings taking the dogs out, and so that's always a rude awakening, but I actually don't mind it too much because it kind of wakes you up a little bit. No,
Yeah,
I,
I
I
don't.
think I think I think our biggest thing right now is we've been on such a run of doing stuff for the holidays that, getting back into work mode, having full work weeks again and not going out to eat or eating way too much for every meal and having drinks and all that. It's time to get back to reality a little bit.
Yeah, time to buckle down a little bit. I don't have a real job, so I can't really relate to the whole job thing. So I'm a jobless bum, as my girlfriend jokes with me. No, I have a lot of work, but I don't really have a job per se, but I get it. Um,
You've been
man,
busy. You've
what
been broadcasting a lot lately. You've been covering a lot of games, so you've been real busy.
I've been busy. Yeah, it's great getting in the rink again a little bit. I got your Gophers coming up a couple times here in the next couple of months, which I'm really excited about. Got them at Michigan State the end of this month, and then got them at Michigan in mid-February. And those are red letter games, as you know, playing in those games and still being a very loyal alum and fan of their team. And yeah, so lots of other stuff. And but this thing, man, is really. I think we both fair to say that we both fallen in love with this. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been fun to, we're obviously still in the infancy stages of this, and it's still very new. We've done 12 episodes, right? I think I did the count.
Correct.
This
Yep.
is this is 13. We're counting it. But
Yep,
we've
that's
done we've
right.
done 12 up until today, and I feel like the feedback's been really positive. Unsolicited too. People coming up and saying stuff at the specifically at Gopher games. I'll random people come up and say like, "Hey, you're Mike, right? Like, that's I love the podcast. It sounds awesome." And the messages, and you're getting them too, Ben. I know, like the
Yep.
messages on Instagram, and again, it's something that I think you and I were passionate about from the get-go, which helps, and it is a unique thing that we're doing. And yeah, I mean, I think from there the list will just continue to grow of people we have on, and we're not going anywhere with this. I think we're both pretty committed to making this, as we were just talking about, a full-time job. And I'm excited about what this year is going to do for that for us.
That is my biggest fear as an adult is having to get a real job. I swear to you, that's the truth, Carmi. I mean, I've had a lot of gigs over the years, as you know, and those that know me know, but like having a real job to me is like I don't want anything to do with that, man. I like doing my broadcast thing and trying to make a living and I've done that for 30 years. So yeah, it'd be cool to see that happen for this podcast and I think that what you said is very true for me and I still go back to something and I've said on our shows that my son said to me and I think our latest episode that we just put out, we're taping this on Monday night with Stacy Goodrich. She's a mental strength coach, and you and we got in touch with her through someone in our tangled web of hockey, Tim Hennessy, the North Dakota radio guy, who's been up there for 45 years. And Tim said, Benny, I think you should try to get this woman on. And it was a different approach for you and I. But the point I'm trying to make is what Luke said, my son said to me. He goes, what I like about this so much is you don't have to be a former athlete. You don't have to be a coach. People go through struggles in life, right? That's kind of how you and we started this thing back 3, 4 months ago. And you were the first guest. You were the guinea pig and did the interview because you had to make your transition out from being a pro athlete and all the years you were committed to the sport. But people can relate. And I think that's what's cool about it because no matter what you do in life, as we know, man, it's ups and downs and you got to deal with things and you got to learn to get through them and have a good attitude and personally that one with Stacy for me, man, was a lot of these though are almost therapeutic for me because I get so much out of them.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, Stacy's too, and just the first point you're making about this being something that transcends across different sports, and is applicable in everyday life. I didn't even really realize the everyday life aspect of it, right? Like we were talking about how every sport, something that can, be applied. But, hearing people talk about it, you're talking about your son bringing it up, and I've had people come up to me that have said like, "Hey, this is cool. I can relate to this, even though I don't
Yep.
understand what you went through." I, went through a career change or a life change and figuring things out and just how everything is applicable. And that is really cool. And the Stacy stuff, I agree. It was I mean, the two big takeaways from her, that A circle
Yeah.
and the goal after the goal. I really, both of those things really, like, I'm like, yes, that makes perfect sense. I love this. And I would, people definitely, I hope you go listen to the episode if you're listening to this one. But the A circle, just, I found that so powerful that, the people in your life that are going to be a positive reflection on what you're trying to do, what you're currently doing, what your goals are. Somebody is not going to weigh you down. And, that doesn't mean somebody that's not going to challenge you, right? But not having bad energy around you, essentially, right? And I thought that was
Yeah.
really cool. Something that I big takeaway for sure.
Yeah, it was really good. So that one is out on our YouTube page. It's in the When the Game Ends playlist on our YouTube page. It's in the link. Carmi did all the social stuff. So, like you said, man, we've done, some good things in a short time. When did we? I think the first one was in October. I want to say you were in the UP of the great state of Michigan when we did that
I
one.
was. I was in a hotel room in Marquette, Michigan, trying to get a deal closed. Um,
How'd the
yeah, I
deal
mean
work
that
out?
we got the deal. So
Nice.
that's a good thing.
Cool.
Um, yeah, that'll be starting up in April for that.
Good.
So, and I probably can't say
Good.
much more about other than that, but it was all
It's all
good.
good.
And yeah, it's been yeah, it feels longer, right? I feel like we've been
It
doing this
does.
forever now. It feels like it's just a routine. It's something I look forward to every week. I know you do too.
Yep.
Um, and it's been really cool. Just to even connect with people again too. Like there's been some we've interviewed that you've known previously, I've known previously, we've both known previously, but
Hmm.
hearing new stories and hearing new perspectives, and I'm like, man, I wish I had had these type of conversations, 10 years ago when I got done playing.
Yeah, and I think it was, well, I know it was in the episode that made me think of something with Jeff Lavecchio, who this week I'm no games on the docket, so I'm going to be doing a lot of editing and getting a lot more stuff out. We still have a lot from episode 10 with Jeff Lavecchio. Drew Shore, who was on with us right before the end of the year, we'll have a lot of clips out from that, and we'll be pushing that stuff out on our social media channels. But Lavecchio, you guys, that was great interaction between you guys in that one, and he remember he was talking about he didn't have the game sheets where he was in the lineup twice in the playoffs, and you mentioned that, to your point, to connect with so many people. And I think for the most part, I think there's only a couple guests, well, maybe three that come to mind. PL, the first guest after you. Who else, man? Will Hooley, who's a partner of mine on Major League Rugby and World Rugby events, a former rugby player. And who's the third? I guess, well, Lavecchio would have been the other one, right? That you didn't really know.
I think so. Yeah, I
Otherwise,
think that's
otherwise, to your point, we've known whether together, like with Colby Cohen, or you knew somebody and I knew somebody, and it's been a lot of fun. And I take a lot of that too, because again, for me, in a lot of these situations, it's therapeutic, man, because you hear like the Blake Jeffrey on one, what he went through, Mike, is just, and you were very close with him. You played with him at USA. I mean, to hear what he went through from a physical standpoint, I mean, he could have died. He literally could have died. That stuff hits home, and you know this, but I'll tell those listening. Within a week of that happening, that podcast, I'm an idiot, so I've been running around playing in the men's league with a half shield the last 2 years. I went out and bought a bubble. Now that's not going to protect, my neck, obviously, but I went to a full shield because it's just stuff like that. That whether it's hockey related, life related, the people that have been a part of our show and as we build, as you said, man, have just been awesome, and every guest has been special in their own way.
yeah, and I think the premise of our show, right? It's when the game ends.
Yep.
And I think, it's gonna. I think it's important for people listening too that every interview is going to be a little bit different. There's definitely going to be some where there's going to be some darker moments. I think I can
Hmm.
think of a couple of people we're trying to get in, where there's going to be some
Yeah.
rougher stories to heal, or the journey they went through to get where they're at now.
Mhm.
But and then there's going to be some where it's like, hey, the transition was super positive. Like I was listening back through a bunch of the clips before we did this to kind of refresh my memory, and like Colby talking about how the game you either retire from the game or the game retires you. And so like stuff like that where people are ready and they have a plan. Like Will Hooley again had a great plan. Danny DeKaiser had a great plan.
Yep.
There's a Lavecchio even just going to school. I mean, that was incredible too, where I know I'm jumping around here,
It's
but
okay.
where he talked about how his mindset was, I'm going to study what is going to help me learn how to train better in college. And I'm like, man, I wish I had a thought of that. I don't know if I would have been able to handle the sports medicine stuff, but it was just the training aspect, like learning everything you need to know about off ice and being able to double down on just what you're getting from the hockey rink too. That all that stuff. I mean, just it's really cool to hear, and I'm excited, um, again, to get more and more stories out there. One thing I will say is I feel like despite different experiences, there's been one pretty common theme that I think almost every guy has talked about, and it's finding something you love, something you care
Yep.
about, something that makes you want to get up in the morning. And for most people, it's not going to be your 9 to 5 job, right? Like I don't know anybody that like loves their job completely and has no complaints about it, right? A job is a job for some people, depending on what industry you're in. Um, but I think like something like this example, it's like I'm excited about this every single week now. Like this is awesome. I'm motivated that this is, to tie back into the game and have that feeling. It's just an example like recently of finding something that I'm like, hey, I really like this. I'm really into this. And this is something I want to continue to grow. And so it's been fun to hear that kind of common theme come out through everyone.
Yeah, it's cool, to see you, the former player, the guy that always had the microphone in his face, Minnesota, American League, USA Hockey, man. It's cool to see you as passionate as you are, man, because that's, I consider us line mates here, man. Like that pushes me, and I think, we push each other in whatever way that is, in a good way. And it's really cool for me to be doing this with you. I never would have thought all those years ago when you and I were together for a year and a half or whatever it was, wasn't very long, that we'd end up doing a podcast. We had, the guy that was your coach then, David Quinn. You and I were talking about him offline. He will be somebody that we have on this year. Can't really put a time on that. He's coaching with the Penguins now. He's busy running the power play with Crosby and Malkin and Eric Carlson and
Tough job.
Letang. Yeah, so he doesn't have time to screw around with us, but we're both good friends with him. You played for him, obviously. He did a lot for me in my life, as I've told you, Carmi, and really one of the tougher times of my life in Cleveland there. But he's going to come on, and it's just, it's funny the way life works, man. It's like, you getting back with Andrew Ebbett. We had Evie on. You guys were together in Wilkes-Barre, and Jeffrey on, and so many other guys, and I love that. I mean, it's yeah. And one of the things I want to mention too is, and I think those that are following us, that are watching our stuff, that are sharing our stuff, whatever it is, yeah, we have Will Hooley on, accomplished rugby player, Stacy Goodrich, who we just talked about. That episode's out, just put it out today. It's not just hockey players. Yeah, Mike and I have a huge background in that, obviously, with our backgrounds, but we want to branch out. Like, I want to, after talking to Stacy, I want to track down somebody that was a golfer. Like, I think that part to see, I
Individual
know what,
sports, the individual sports
yes,
mentality.
yes. And, there's one that comes to mind that I covered 20 years ago. She's long retired, and I may reach out to her. So, we have a lot of different people that we want to reach out to. And, I'll share the name you mentioned. You were kind of think you were referring to earlier, and that's Ian White, a guy that's had all kinds of trouble. We're in contact with Ian. We're hoping to get him on here sometime in the next month or two. He's going to be playing in a Red Wing alumni game that is in March. And from what I understand from the guy that I deal with on those games, this is something Ian reached out to them about, because I think at this point of his life, he's gone through some struggle with alcohol and some other issues, and he wants to get back around the guys and probably get back on the ice in some way, shape, or form. So, yeah, I mean, it's most of our stories have been of the success, which is great. But again, this was an idea that Carmi had, and we've kind of morphed it now into our second. We're in our second year of doing it, man. So it's awesome to keep doing it.
Yeah, and one of the things, I was taking a bunch of like I try and take like one or two takeaways from every guy before like kind of rewatch them before we came on the
Hmm.
episode. And
Yep.
something that, you talk about like the struggles guys have, and it might be with the bottle, it might be drugs, there's all sorts of ways you can it might deep depressions.
Yeah.
But what PL said, LeBlond, in his interview was it's hard to like maximize your potential or know how to reach your goals when you leave a sport. And that was something that I think he was one of the few that said that.
Yep.
And it may be the only one. And it really hit home because it is something where in a sport, you generally know what you need to do to get better, and it's on you to do it.
Yep.
And it's pretty black and white. Yeah, there's an argument to be made for professional sports is about timing and opportunity and things like that, but you got to put yourself in the best possible position to take advantage of that opportunity when it comes, right? But in general, you know what you need to do. In the real world, on the business world, like it's not as black and white. Yeah, you can say, yeah, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to get up early and do this and be prepared and hit every day head on. But the reality of it is, like, it's not the same as trying to climb the ranks in a sport. And so I found like that was something that I think as depending on some of the interviews that we have moving forward, I feel like that theme is going to come up again. And I look forward to exploring that with guys, and kind of how they got through that and found their way to the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating stuff, and for me, it's therapeutic in the sense that it really puts things in perspective, and I love that. I have a passion for that of seeing people, no one wants to see anyone fail. I mean, I want to see people succeed and do great things in life, and so that's a pretty cool thing to see and to hear. And man, he was great too, man. I still remember the story about the guy who pulled a gun on him in the Quebec League, and we've had some pretty good stories. And one thing that I'll throw out there is if there's anybody that's following us, whatever, hit us up on social media, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. If there's somebody you think would be a good guest, you know, feel free to share that. I mean, we've got a couple that way. I mean, again, our pool of people is pretty big, so but we're always open. And I want to get, like, I remember one of the things with you, Carmi, was cool, was again, back to you getting into the broadcast side, which is cool for me to see, and awesome to work with you, and our passion and fire for this thing is off the charts together. But I remember when I got Will on, and you're like, oh boy, I got to talk to this guy that played rugby. You don't know anything, but it was awesome, and you're killing it, man. So it's cool to see that, and I think it's just two former athletes talking about sports and what you do when it's over. So that was a cool moment for me thus far of the 12 we've done.
Yeah, I was definitely, what was that, episode 5 we did with him, I think?
Yeah, it's
And
4 or 5. Yeah,
yeah, somewhere in there. So again, I'm still adjusting to asking questions. You
yeah,
alluded to this already. Asking
yeah,
questions versus just answering, right? That's very different
yeah.
than listening to what's being said. And then you got guys like Blake who tell stories for 5 minutes, and there's four different things I want to ask, but it just keeps jumping along, and then it's
Yep,
like, all right, well, I got to find something else to ask now so we can
yep.
keep this moving. But yeah, it was cool because I was a little nervous. I'm like, I know very little about rugby, but again, the message isn't about knowing the sport, right? I
That's
mean, it
right.
goes back to what we've been talking about. The message is about the experiences and the feelings and the trauma you may go through, and having a plan, what that looks like. And that, again, we keep coming back to it. It's you can do it with any sport. And I again, like you said, I was talking to Stacy. I look forward to doing, golfers, tennis players, gymnasts, like anybody. I mean, I guess gymnasts is still kind of a team sport to some degree, but you are individually performing, right? And
Yeah.
just getting in the mind of people that are going through that. That's a completely different world. I don't know if you golf, Benny. I don't know if we've covered that, but
Oh yeah. I'm
yeah,
big golfer. Oh yeah.
So, okay, so I can't believe we haven't covered that. But um golfing, you know how it is, right? Like you're just with your buddies and you might be nervous a little bit, like, oh, I got to get tighter
Yep.
than, closer to the pin, whatever it is. I got to pipe this one, let alone doing it in front of hundreds of thousands of people on the course and then millions on TV and
Yep.
having being scrutinized for every shot you take. I mean, that's a different level of mental toughness.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, I mean, you went through that when you played. I mean, people were always judging you on what you did, right? I mean, every time I go on the air, you and I were joking last night, we conversation and you're a play-by-play guy, man. You're always to blame, right? So, and you went through that when you played, I'm sure. I mean, I don't know how much stuff was on. Did you deal with a lot of that social media stuff or not? Not really when you played.
Not really. The social media was still pretty fresh. I think Facebook became a thing either when I was a senior in high school or a freshman in college, but that was back when you needed a college email to have a
Oh,
Facebook. Like you couldn't just have a Facebook,
yeah.
like you can now. Um, but so there wasn't a ton of that, thank God. I'm really appreciative that it wasn't the instant posting of videos and pictures that people do now, just because, we had a lot of fun and you talk to old school guys in sports and hockey players and you want to have fun out the ice and get away from it. And it's so hard now, for athletes nowadays to get away and be
Yeah.
able to do things off the radar with their teammates and whatnot. But no, I would say the toughest thing I went through from a scrutiny standpoint was in college.
Hmm,
And,
I
for
bet.
anybody who's a medium, relative Gopher fan will probably remember this, but I went ineligible for a semester in college.
Ooh.
And that was, I will couple things I remember specifically about that was this was my first half of my sophomore year. We just got done freshman year. I was played in World Juniors. We won a bronze medal. We were making a run with the Gophers that year. We lost to North Dakota in the game to go to the Frozen Four. We had a very, very good team. And I was enjoying that. I was like, we don't lose. Like, this is awesome. Like, I'm enjoying being in college, like playing lifelong dream of playing for the Gophers, and unfortunately did not pay enough attention to school that spring semester and screwed me over and caused a lot of, strain and stress on my family. I know they were, I'm sure, embarrassed that their kid
Hmm.
did that. And, there's a lot that went into it. I remember, media commenting on it and I got called a lot of things I don't really want to repeat,
I'm sure.
um, that weren't true, obviously. Although I will say, one of the funniest things I saw my first game back was against St. Cloud in St. Cloud. And one of their students are pretty rowdy. I would say they're up
Yeah.
there with the North Dakota student section. Not quite as many, but they're rowdy. And we're in warm-ups, and one of their students was holding up a sign that said, "Hey, Carmen, hooked on phonics worked for me." So, I mean, how do you not laugh at that, right?
Right.
No, but
Right.
that to me, that was probably the toughest thing I went through. It was very embarrassing. I almost left school. That's what a lot of people
Wow.
don't know. I almost went to the WHL.
Damn.
Um, and I ended up staying, and I'm glad I did. Played in World Juniors again that year, and things worked out. Things worked out, but
Hmm.
yeah, it was tough, and it was a hard semester to sit through, and you feel pretty embarrassed. I was really fortunate, back then that was when FSN covered us,
Yep.
for every game, and they did they did a story with me and let me kind of share
Hmm.
what I went through in my experience before I came back for my first game. They did like a little feature, and I was really
Nice.
appreciative of that because it allowed me to get my message out about what happened and kind of like how I took that and like I didn't run away from the problem and so that I was really appreciative of that. But that was for me, that was the time I felt under scrutiny the most, I think, and that was that was mentally challenging few months there.
Could have used Stacy Goodrich back then.
Sure could have.
Um, we got about 7 minutes left here in the window. I'll just let you know that. One thing I want to throw out there too, on top, and I think we'll probably both give our, where we want to see this thing move in the next few months here, Carmi. But if there's anyone out there watching that has any disposable income, we are looking for sponsors. I hate to do that, but that's sometimes what you got to do in the world to get a response. But that's an area that we want to take to another level. We want to try to get some sponsorship and try to build what we're doing here. And if anybody's interested in that, socials, or if you have our numbers, if you know us and you're watching this, just hit us up. But yeah, we'd like to do that and do some upgrades to the look of it, what we're doing, and we both have big dreams to have these fancy studios, man. So maybe we can do some of that too. But all kidding aside, we'd be interested in anyone that wants to talk to us. Reach out to us on social media if you have any interest in that.
We should have planned ahead a little bit better today because you're wearing the 1980 Miracle Waggle hat. I have that exact same hat, and
Love this hat.
hey, USA just won the gold, right? So
That's right. Two in a row,
but
baby.
anybody from Waggle listening, I own about half your wardrobe of
There
everything
we
you guys
go.
have ever made. So we'd be happy to get a sponsor from Waggle. I'd say we could have planned ahead, worn the matching hats, but
Yeah, no, for
yeah.
sure, man. And Carmi, I'll let you kind of have the floor first here in the final, maybe a final thought. And what are some of your goals, hopes, aspirations here as we're now into our second year of doing this thing?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just continuing to expand on this new venture, right? For me, I'm learning every time. Again, you and I feel like every time we do this, we're getting a better give and take rapport.
Yep,
There are times you have to cut me off or vice versa. Like I cut you off just because we're not in the same room, and that does make that a little challenging.
does.
Um, but I think for me, it's like I just want to continue to grow because, yeah, we want to make a career out of this. And I think we have a great opportunity to do that if we stick with it. But even more so, the reason we started this is to get that message out there to people that need it and need the help and are struggling with it or maybe about to begin that struggle as they know their time
hmm
in the game or professional career, whatever it is coming to an end or they're not sure what's next. I hope that it reaches people. I hope that that continues to get out there, and that again, the more we grow, the more popular we become, the more we get things out on social media. We want to get in people's algorithms, right? And we want this to get
Yep.
out there and get to the people that not only enjoy listening to the stories and hearing from people, but the people that also really, need it and can benefit from it.
I don't really have much to add. You said it all, man. That's pretty damn good there in terms of that. I think too, I think for me, one of the things I want to do, and we kind of touched on this, on top of everything that you mentioned and we've discussed, great stuff, is kind of, branching out a little bit more in terms of, all right, let's get an NFL guy, let's get an NBA guy, let's get a Major League Baseball guy, let's get an LPGA golfer that's who I was referencing earlier that I know. I think just to have that, those different perspectives, those different sports, and that's something that's really that's on my list of things. And I think one of the things too is getting our broadcast look that you and I have talked about. That's going to be happening here soon. And just keep turning out a good product every time we do it. And Carmi, I'll let you plug the two guests since you booked them here that we got coming up in the next 3 weeks before we say so long here.
Yeah, next week we've got Mike Ratchuk, one of your Sparties, former Sparty. He was a teammate
Yep.
of mine in Ann Arbor. We crossed paths again in the minors in Wilkes-Barre at training camp the one year. But he's got a pretty good story, and I believe he's a fireman now.
Oh
So
wow,
that's a unique
cool,
story that we haven't heard yet.
very cool.
And so yeah, he'll be on next week. We have to fill the week after, but we have options
We got
and
options.
messages out, so there'll be someone there. And then
Yep.
the last week of the month, we have Paul Martin coming on, current player development director at the Gophers here, and long time NHL player and former Gopher. It'll be a good chat with him too, and yeah, looking forward to it. And again, we just want to keep building the base and getting those interviews lined up and getting all sorts of stories out there.
Paul Martin, the pride of Elk River, Minnesota, right?
Yes.
Yeah. First person I ever saw that came out of there was Joel Otto because I collected cards. I was a stat nerd when I was a kid.
And you taught me that because I didn't know that. I know who Joel Otto is, but I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, that's where he's from. Nick Perbix is from there. There's a bunch of guys from there now,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's become a pretty big hop. Yeah, Paul's a great guy. I'm looking forward to talking with Paul. I see him on the road here and there in the few Big Ten games I get to do, and that'll be fun. And Mike Ratchuk, like you said, I know Mike from doing a lot of his games in college, and he's a guy that we can say he's had some struggles, and it's glad to see that he's got. Seems like the wheels are on right, and that'll be fun to talk with him, man.
Looking forward to chatting with everybody. It should be great.
Cool. Well, hope all those of you out there that took this in and watched this a little abbreviated episode 13, just kind of wanted to give a little, I guess, a little state of the union, Carmi, on what we're doing and how things have gone. And again, if you have somebody you think would be good for us, hit us up on social, email us, whatever you want to do to reach out, because we're open to that. We want to get as many different types of athletes and former athletes on and coaches, whatever it might be, on our podcast. We're proud of what we're doing and hope you enjoyed this. Got a last word?
I'll just say real quick, if I want people to know too, like, we have guys reaching out to us about coming on themselves.
We do.
And so I don't want, I want to, if people think they'd like to come on and share their story,
Yeah.
former athletes, whatever, like come let us know. And we appreciate that as well. So I want to make sure that people know it doesn't sound weird if you're reaching out to us like, hey, can I come on?
No, you've had two or three, and I've had two or three guys do that too. So yeah, we welcome that too, and it's a healthy back and forth with all those guys. So all right, Carmi, see you next week. That's gonna do it for episode 13 of When the Game Ends. For Mike Carmen, Ben Holden saying thanks for watching. Go USA, Happy New Year, and we will see you with an all new episode next week of When the Game Ends.
Happy New Year, everyone.